Are you really focused on value or the money? Deep down, guys. I'm not talking about surface level 1 or 2 or 3. I'm talking level 8, 9, 10. Deep down. Is it about the money or is it about the service? Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a 7-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Welcome back, everybody. Broadcasting from the beautiful Pocono Mountains. This is your host, Joshua Gillow. Hey, this week I was reflecting on some thoughts from when I was a child, and I wanted to share this with you guys. And it's gonna just stick with me through this because it's gonna be a powerful episode. I remember as a child, I grew up in a garden center, and that was started when I was about 5 years old. My mother started that because her two sons were heading off to school, and she was bored, and she loved raising plants. And anyway, she did that. Grew up in a model where I saw my mother making money right out of our porch in the back of the house, thinking like, how can I do that? So I'd go and collect some rocks in the neighborhood and in the fields around me, and I'd put them out there, and I'd stand there as a cute kid and get paid, hopefully a quarter if I got lucky for that. And it was an entrepreneur was born, right? The idea that I could add value to the world and get paid for it. I'm like, very interesting. I really find this fascinating. I've always found this fascinating. So anyway, growing up in the garden center, it was certainly not always easy. We worked 7 days a week. And that as that garden center grew, not when it was small, but as we got older, worked 7 days a week in that garden center, specifically in the summertime. And if not, it was after school. It was just nonstop. We never really did more than work. Everything was work. And the crazy part is all those years, as I reflect now as a 46-year-old guy, and I look back, I'm like, all those years, we never, and I say we, my brother and I, he's about 18 months younger than me. We never got paid for it. We'd work days and days and days transplanting itty bitty little plants from a propagation tray, which is just let's say a 10 by 20 tray that's about 2 inches thick with soil in it. And my mother would put the seeds in there, put them on heat pads, and put the plastic over the top, put them in a greenhouse, germinate them up. What was it called? The germinating house. We'd germinate everything in there. And then we'd sit at a table, a picnic table, for hours and hours and hours, days and days and days in the spring, and pull one plant out of the germinating tray very carefully so we didn't break it. They were maybe a half inch to an inch long, and we would put them in one cell of a larger flat. Like you get a flat of plants, might have 32 or 48 plants in it. We would take each plant and put them in the cell and tap them in place, and we would do that for hours and hours and hours. That was growing up for me, especially in the springtime when everything was growing. And we would do that, and then once they were planted, we would have tons and tons of trays that we had planted over the day. Then we would carry them 2 and 3 at a time down to another greenhouse, because we weren't working in the greenhouse. It was they weren't close enough. We did everything in the basement, and then we'd move it out and then down. So we'd carry them all day back and forth, carrying trays. And then from that greenhouse, we'd move those trays up to the sales area where we'd actually have them out for sale once they grew. After a few weeks or months in the other greenhouses for growth, we would then move them up. So a ton of labor, a ton of very meticulous handwork in the very beginning. And the crazy part is all these years of doing that and taking care of customers and keeping the garden center up and all that stuff, we never got paid. I never made a dime doing it. It wasn't the focus. And I asked my father at times, I'm like, my friends at school, they're going out with other friends, they're doing fun stuff. Like, why are we always working? And how are they getting jobs and making money and we're still working for free? And my father, I'll never forget when he says to me, like, look, money will always come after you add value. And he ingrained that in me very young. Once you add value, money will always follow. Do the right thing, do the good thing, and money will always follow. You will always have enough. And, as a young kid trying to make money and wanting to become more and have money to take girls out and to buy things and all that kind of stuff, I was like, that's great, Dad, but I still need the money part, right? I can add all the value I need to here at the garden center, but there's, where does that take me from there? Like, how am I going to make enough money to be able to do other things too? And I love that lesson that my father taught me that way and my mother taught me that way, that it's not about the money. If they would have paid me to do the work, it would have been a completely different experience and a completely different lesson that was taught. And I take that lesson deep into my heart now in my 40s and say, you know what? I obviously want to work on making sure my kids, I don't have a garden center, making sure my sons get that same kind of experience where they do it for the joy of the work. They enjoy the grind, or at least tolerate it, and they're willing to do hard things in order to get to a goal. And if that goal is only money, then that's a pretty low bar. If you're getting money from projects, you're getting money from things that you're doing, but you don't enjoy them, or you're not finding joy in them, or you're not able to find joy in them because you're thinking, I want to be doing something else here, but right now I'm doing this because I need the money. That's a very transactional lifestyle. And deep down, it empties your bucket and you start feeling hollow and empty inside. Anybody out there that had lots of bills to pay in a business and just did the work they didn't like, but they just did the work that needed to be done to pay the bills, you get me. I'm sure you can feel me. I know I've been there already. Anyway, so that lesson that was taught to me by my father and mother young, that you don't work for money, you work for value. You try to add as much value as you can, and money will always follow. I've translated into all the different parts of my life. And I find myself at times when I get stuck in this idea of I need to make more money or I need to do this, that the joy, the excitement of the project, whatever it might be, whether it's an outdoor living project or another project I'm working on, goes down. When I can get myself recentered back in that, I just need to keep adding value. Listeners out there, business owners, if you get stuck and you find yourself in just a dark hole, the fastest way out is to figure, first of all, you got to stop digging, right? Put the shovel away. Second is to think, all right, maybe this approach isn't working. How can I add more value to my market, to my customers, than anybody else is? And that value isn't a cheaper price. That value is, how can I add more to this relationship? You've heard me talk about this on many podcasts. How can I add more to this relationship than anybody else could? And oftentimes that more isn't giving the client more for what they paid for physically. Like if it's a $20,000 project and you have, say, $12,000 in cost sunk into it, it's not giving them $19,000 worth of value, if you will, for a $20,000 bill, and you'll make $1,000. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is, how can you go beyond money? Like my father taught me, how can you go beyond money to the value? How can you be more valuable than anybody else in your market? And again, it's not a price thing. This is about understanding and listening to your customers. We talked about that a few episodes ago, about listening, about the difference between hearing and listening. If there's any clue that I can give you, listeners, that I've learned along my journey, is the better you become at listening and communicating, the more valuable you become to your customer. And the more valuable you are in your customer's life through that relationship, the deeper they're going to dig in their pocket in order to get the solutions that you have offered, as long as you've listened well. And that's a fact. That's not something that's just made up or some kind of crazy hokey thought. This is a fact that we see over and over and over again. When we're rushing through projects because we're focused on money, because we got bills to pay, the relationship gets beat up, or is non-existent, or just goes sour. And then everything becomes more stressful, more overwhelmed. And the clients get overwhelmed, they get stressed, you get that brunt of them being dissatisfied or their expectations weren't met, all because you're trying to race to the dollar instead of the value. So listeners out there, if you find yourself stressed and overwhelmed, take a moment and think back. Are you really focused on value or the money? Deep down, guys. I'm not talking about surface level 1 or 2 or 3. I'm talking level 8, 9, 10. Deep down. Is it about the money or is it about the service? Because that's a huge chasm in your heart, in your soul, whether you're doing this for the money, for the accolades, for the significance of being a successful business owner, whatever the hell that means. Everybody quantifies that differently. What is it for you? If it is the money, own it. Problem is, it's never going to give you what you truly want, that joy, love, and fulfillment. You're not going to get that from money. Money is only a level 1 currency. There's far higher levels of currency. The highest level of currency is relationships. You probably didn't know that, did you? That there's different levels of currency. Been blessed to be able to be around very strong, successful men that have taught me these principles, these ideas, that as we've always been taught, that money is a currency, and it's not wrong, but it's the lowest form of currency. Relationships are the highest. So how can you shift your value proposition to your customer from being either the cheapest or money focused to being value focused? Taking the same principle that my father taught me about how it's not about doing it for the money, but it's doing it for the service and for the value you're providing to your customers. How can you integrate that into your business? How would that shift the way you show up? You hear me talk a lot about this in this podcast, and you're going to hear me say it many, many more times. If you're focused on revenue, it's a very, very slippery slope and a dead end. If you're focused on relationships, man, the stuff you get beyond money in a relationship is incredible, right? Think about your friend relationships. If it was just, hey, I'll pay you to go out and play pool with me tonight, like that wouldn't be any fun. But when you go out as a relationship and you're building a connection, so many other buckets are filled in that, right? So many deeper buckets, emotional buckets are being filled. So I challenge you to look in your business and take an authentic deep dive into your soul. Is it about the money or is it about service? And be honest with yourself. Be raw. Which is it? If it's about money, perhaps there's some room for growth there, since that's the lowest form of currency. It is a necessity in a business. It's the lifeblood of the business, but it can't be the reason why the business exists. The business has to do something more. We call it a transcendent cause. It's something more than you and I. It has to be doing something more with the world than you and I, and that lights you up each day to get outside and get on that train each morning, as opposed to the I need to make money to pay bills train. You feel a shift there? Imagine having something that pulls you out of bed in the morning, not that your alarm clock has to kick you out of bed in the morning. That's the difference between living in a service mindset and a relationship mindset versus a numbers mindset or a financial gain mindset where it's all about the money. So guys listening, hope this week was powerful for you. I know the lesson my father taught me, probably 40 years ago, has steered everything that I do. And I hope that lesson lands on your heart. And I hope that you see some value in it, focusing on how much value you can provide your customers, provide the world. And in that, once the value is provided, the money will always follow. And I found that to be true every single time. And you know what? Here's the part as I'm finishing up here. Here's the part that gets a little bit more interesting. It's not always on our time. God has a sense of humor when it comes to this. We think that we have control over our lives, and we don't. We have control over how we show up in our actions. But ultimately, timing is His. And with that knowledge, we have to show up each day adding value, doing the best we possibly can, knowing that eventually it will all make sense. And in my mid-40s now, I'm finally starting to understand that wisdom that comes from the hard work, the perseverance, all of the wins, losses, draws that have happened throughout my life. I'm starting to look at them as all being teachable moments and all being ways that I now can see the world through different lenses, different eyes. And it's all possible because I know it's not on my time. I'm here to put in the action. I'm here to put in the everything I need in order to grow and to become more so I can give more. But everything's really in God's hands. So guys, if you focus on value, you focus on relationships, your heart will grow, your business will grow, your connections will grow. The amount of stress and overwhelm, frustration will diminish. But I will say it's not the simplest path. If it was easy, everybody would do it. The world teaches us that money is more important than relationships, and that's dead wrong. Without relationships, it's the oxygen to the soul. Money just pays the bills. So guys, I hope this episode lands on you. And I'm honored to be able to speak with you each week, a couple of times, and share what's on my heart. I appreciate that you guys keep showing up and you keep listening. This means more to me than you could ever imagine, to be able to have the opportunity to share these things with the world. And hopefully these same gifts that were given to me will be gifts that you can give on to your kids, to your teammates, to others in the world, because we only are stewards of these. We don't ever own this stuff. These gifts are designed by God to be given to the next person, not to be squandered, not to be put in a closet and locked. They're designed to give. And when you give, man, when you give from your heart, you get so much more back. And most of the time, it's not money. It's things that are so much higher, specifically relationships. So ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you listening along. I hope this moved your heart, because this is the kind of stuff that this lesson was one that absolutely shifted my life and is pointing me in a direction of service that fills my heart every day. So thank you for that opportunity.